State Circle is made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities and is made possible by the generous support of our members. Thank you.
Lawmakers again censure one of their colleagues.
It is about style and not substance.
Heartfelt debate and a deep divide on a life and death issue.
When, as I watched my daughter, when they even said to me, she is unconscious now, and I couldn't reach her.
And I was very relieved to see the bill defeated.
And shining a light on the dangers of artificial sunshine.
I think that if their parents allow them to, they should, knowing the risks that they can do it whenever age they want to.
Connecting Marylanders to their government. This is State Circle.
Good evening. The big story around State Circle this week is another delegate reprimanded for bad behavior. 1 month after lawmakers censured a colleague for racist language, they voted to condemn another delegate's treatment of his staff. Charles Robinson has the story.
The Ethics Committee was never set up to be a tone police. If you look at any of the complaints or charges, if you will, or allegations in the report, it is about style and not substance.
Delegate Jay Jalisi was not in the chamber as the full body heard the charges and conclusions of the Ethics Committee investigation.
Staff conducted 38 interviews. The committee received sworn testimony at a hearing this past weekend from 18 individuals, reviewed documents and other evidence, and met in closed session multiple times to discuss this issue. This institution has an obligation to provide a workplace for its employees that is free of intimidation and harassment.
The charges allege the delegate berated his own staff and staff of the General Assembly, and his staff was required to stay for mandatory overtime. The speaker urged him to attend anger management and workplace civility classes.
There seemed to be sort of a thumbing of the nose by Delegate Jalisi at recommendations from the speaker. We felt this was the next step, not a step that any of us took lightly, but one that we felt was important.
I come from the medical field, and I'm not used to the bureaucracy of Annapolis. When I came here, I thought that my work will get me ahead, and that was probably naive. I didn't learn the politics of politics. Never, even when they have gone to jail. Never, for most recently, for a censure against using a racial slur against people of color, has the speaker decided to stop paying their staff, because the staffs of people of different offices are not party to this politics. What they don't understand is they're making life difficult for 4 families, not 4 individuals.
That's the way the system works. I mean, his staff, will not be paid, and I think, and I don't remember specifically whether he has people there now. I think at the moment, anyone that is working with him is volunteering.
What happens next is clear. His staff will not be paid. But as far as his votes, well, they still count. In Annapolis, I'm Charles Robinson for State Circle.
3 vetoes issued this week by Governor Hogan were quickly overridden by Democratic majorities in the House and Senate. Among them, a bill to gradually raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
People who get a minimum wage are not people that are going to put this money away in the bank. They aren't going to buy stocks and bonds with it. They're going to spend it. And in spending it, they are going to make local businesses more vibrant.
I really fear where this is going to go, because we know who it's going to impact. And the sad part is it's going to be hard to detect, because a lot of these folks, they're just not going to get jobs. They're not going to be there.
Lawmakers also overrode a veto of a bill to strip the comptroller's authority over alcohol and tobacco enforcement. And the third override concerned a bill to undo the governor's executive order that schools start after Labor Day. The governor and legislative leaders were on the same page, however, on a bill to protect federal workers in the event of another government shutdown. The governor, the Senate president, and the House Speaker pro tem held a signing ceremony for the bill, which will offer low-interest loans to workers who are required to work without pay during a shutdown. An effort to allow physicians to assist terminally ill patients in ending their lives came down to a high-stakes vote on the Senate floor. Our Yolanda Vasquez was there.
Our state law forbids physician-assisted suicide, and yet we're passing this saying, well, this is an exception. So let's be clear, we're talking about setting a standard for the entire state.
A spirited debate on the Senate floor.
I am such a strong believer in this being my choice and not somebody else's.
For a bill that evokes both personal and powerful testimony.
When, as I watched my daughter, when they even said to me, she is unconscious now, and I couldn't reach her, she constantly hiccuped for about 3 more weeks, just hiccups. What I have experienced, nobody can take from me.
I love life, and I hope I fight it right till the last second. I don't know that I would ever use this, but I'd certainly like the option to if it got that bad. And that's all I want, just the option.
Senate Bill 311 would allow terminally ill patients who meet certain requirements to request life-ending medication from a physician.
I share the deep concern that physicians can make diagnostic mistakes, and many patients can live for years after a prognosis of immediate death.
The effort to legalize medically assisted suicide eventually failed in the Senate with a 23-23 vote. A majority vote is needed to pass a bill on second reader.
To see 23-23 was a bit surprising when you knew that there were 47 senators sitting in the room.
Senator Obie Patterson of Prince George's County chose a neutral stance on the issue.
I did not cast a vote simply because I could not bring myself to move right or left on the bill, and therefore I didn't vote at all.
Isn't that a violation of Senate rules, though?
I don't know if it is, but I had to vote my conscience, and that's what I did.
And I was very relieved to see the bill defeated, just because I think that it opens the door for a lot of bad things. And once we allow this to happen, there's really no going back on it.
Even though the Senate rejected the bill with a surprise tie vote, the bill's sponsor said he's proud of the work he's done and the progressive movement the legislation has made over the last 80 days.
It's never got out of the House. It's never come out of the Senate committee. I mean, it came out of the Senate committee with 8 senators voting for it. So it's a big deal. And 23 senators on the floor. So it's a true mark of progress.
Senator Will Smith says the deadlocked votes tallied in the Senate do not reflect the will of the people.
I think Maryland is ready for it. Obviously, the Senate is not quite ready for it, but the polls are, over 60%, 63% of the last polling. So Marylanders overwhelmingly support this option.
And so for the 4th time in as many years, the end-of-life option ends abruptly, just days before the session closes. In Annapolis, I'm Yolanda Vasquez for State Circle.
A bill that would help keep local pharmacies in business and potentially lower costs is moving forward in Annapolis. Delegate Nick Kipke is sponsoring a bill that would help protect pharmacies from what he calls anti-competitive measures by large pharmacy benefit managers.
In fact, in the bill, we put the words, you have to disclose the mathematical formula for how you're doing these reimbursements, because the regulator can't even understand where they're coming up with the numbers. So I've never seen that before in the bill. Provide the mathematical formula for the reimbursements, but it's essential because if we don't pass this bill this year, hundreds of pharmacies are going to close in Maryland.
The delegate says that in some cases, pharmacies pay more for drugs than they can charge their customers. The bill has passed the House. After failing in previous years, a bill to ban minors from visiting tanning salons is nearing final passage. Nancy Amato reports.
The chance of developing melanoma, skin cancer, which is very serious, is 6 times more prevalent if they begin tanning really under the age of 25.
Senator Pamela Beidel is hoping to convince fellow lawmakers to pass a bill which would ban anyone under 18 years of age from going to a tanning salon that uses ultraviolet light.
And I've tanned, and my daughter tanned, and now I worry about her because she tanned when she was young. I don't think a lot of parents understand the increased chance of melanoma by allowing their young children to tan.
As it stands right now, under state law, minors can go to a tanning salon with their parents' permission. But bill supporters say many teens forge their parents' signature. Weighing in on the matter are high school students who listened to the floor debate in the Senate while touring the State House.
You think you look better when you're tan?
Yes, I think I do. I think that if their parents allow them to, they should, knowing the risks that they can do it whenever age they want to.
Personally, I don't think a tanning bed is a great idea because it can cause cancer and everything, but I believe if you have parent consent and you've thought about it and you're willing to put your body through that, then that's fine.
Opponents of the bill contend banning kids from going to a professional tanning salon might lead to more unsupervised tanning outside and with home tanning beds.
I actually had skin cancer when I was younger, so I know sun can be very dangerous.
Even so, Senator Justin Reedy believes the bill isn't necessary.
We have a strong parental notification law, and there hasn't been any instance of any complaints in any of the county health departments or to the Attorney General about there being abuses. So why are we targeting this kind of practice when we have, there's all kinds of things you can look at. Well, should the government ban this or not ban this? I just think it's an overreach of government.
We're just trying to protect the children, just like we were doing with the smoking law, increasing the age to 21.
No matter what the outcome,
You can do like tanning lotions or spray tans, and those are a lot better.
the teens we met say there are alternatives to exposing themselves to harmful UV rays. Doctors say they are far safer choices that could prevent a cancer diagnosis when they're older. I'm Nancy Yamada for State Circle.
Still awaiting action in the final week of the legislative session, a bill to reform the leadership of the University of Maryland medical system. Speaker Michael Bush this week amended his proposed ban on board members having no-bid contracts with the hospital to also require that all current members of the board resign. Several members of the unpaid board have been found to have financial dealings with UMMS, including Baltimore Mayor Pugh, who was paid $500,000 for copies of her Healthy Holly children's books. One member of the state Senate had to say an early goodbye to his colleagues this week. Senator Will Smith is an officer in the Navy Reserve and is being deployed to Afghanistan.
I'm proud to be supporting the mission as we go forward, and I think that there will be peaceful withdrawal eventually. So I'm optimistic on that point, but it has also given me a new perspective on the fragility of government, because Afghanistan has gone through so many iterations of government that have been installed by Western powers. And it kind of refocuses my attention and the importance on the work that we do here today.
Lawmakers said a prayer for the safe return of Senator Smith, who is chairman of the Veterans Caucus. And joining us for the Annapolis Face-Off this week, Delegate Eric Ebersol from Baltimore and Howard counties. He's a Democrat. Also, Delegate Jason Buckle, a Republican from Allegheny County. Thanks to both of you for being with us. Delegate Ebersol, you have a bill that has passed the House on the subject of people using handheld cell phones while they're driving. What would this change?
It would change the nature of the law, which was originally written with restrictive fines for this. The fines started off at $75 for the first offense, $125 for the next $175. But this really kind of tamped down the kinds of fines that could be given for this, what I would call very dangerous practice. And we have seen no decrease in the number of people cited for using handheld devices. It's well over 30,000 people a year since that law has been instituted. That's about 100 citations a day. So we're looking to open this up to a normal Maryland motor vehicle violation, which can have a fine of as much as $500. Doesn't have to. People who normally would be cited would be sent a citation where they could prepay, usually for a smaller amount of money. But the district court could notice repeat offenders and begin to increase their fine. My big hope is that people will see that and it will be publicized that the fine could be much larger, and perhaps this will be preventative rather than punitive.
I see people doing this all the time, as do you, and the citations back that up. Is this enough of a change to affect people's behavior?
It's difficult to say since it's a new behavior. We're not used to this. Is in the last 10 years or so, we've really had devices that you could and send messages so quickly. So I'm hoping it will do that. I'm also thinking with recent developments, people just need to learn how to say 2 words. Hey Siri or OK Google, and you can do pretty well to actually get your messages sent or even your phone calls made by voice in the car without taking your hands off the wheel.
Delegate Buckle, I believe you were a no vote on this bill, and it's probably not because you want to encourage people to keep doing this.
No, not at all. But I think my good friend Delegate Ebersol just hit on something. I don't think that increasing the fines up to these significant levels is really going to alter the behavior. And I think in many cases it's going to hit people that can't afford the fines, and then that creates collateral consequences. We have a lot of discussion in Annapolis. What happens if you are poorer or lower on the socioeconomic rung and you get hit with certain fines, you get hit with certain administrative or regulatory costs, and now all of a sudden you lose your license or your license gets suspended and you can't go to work and now you have a record. And there's a lot of things that go into this for behavior which is very negligent. No one should be texting while they're driving, operating a vehicle on the highway or really anywhere. But we're almost criminalizing it in a way without making it a criminal. We're increasing the fines to such a significant extent that I think it may have some collateral blowback on a lot of folks. And I really appreciated what Eric said. I think that the way that we're going to deal with this program over time is better education about the consequences in terms of loss of life, accidents, terrible things that can happen. Our young people, I mean, we've now reached a generation of folks who've grown up texting almost their entire lives, which Eric and I definitely did not as teenagers. We didn't know what a text was. But education and the technology that lets people use these cell phones, use these devices hands-free in a safe and effective way. I think that's really what's going to change and hopefully reduce the incidence of this problem, as opposed to not lowering, but raising and creating more potentials for fines and collateral consequences.
Jeff, if I may, the law doesn't require a $500 fine. It merely says that could be the maximum. It's really left up to discretion of district court to decide that. There's still a provision in the law that a first-time offender can be relieved of being prosecuted if they can demonstrate that they have hands-free technology that they will use in their car in the future.
Okay.
That's one of the things. I mean, I'm a lawyer by trade. That's one of the things that happens sometimes in district court. That's well-meaning, and that's absolutely what the law does. It doesn't impose a specific fine, but you sometimes wind up with one particular district court judge in one courtroom across the hallway who has a bent for this. You know, I've seen this in my own life. There are some district court judges who hate speeders, and they take a universal approach of I'm going to give the max fine, the max points to everyone that's a speeder. If you get assigned to the other judge on the other side of the hallway, they may have a little bit more discretionary approach, and you kind of wind up meeting out in equal justice. But I do appreciate, I think that Eric is in a good faith way trying to deal with the problem. I'm just not so sure that this is the best or the only way to deal with it.
Before I run out of time here, Delegate Ebersol, I also just wanted to ask you for a word about your bill on the State Board of Education. This would add some members. What would it do? This is also passed the House, correct?
Right. So yes. And so as a former teacher, one of the things I've discovered here in the legislature is that my voice as a person who worked for many years at the point of delivery in the classroom is valuable for helping to evaluate new initiatives and new programs for how they'll actually manifest themselves when they arrive in the classroom. And to that end, I think we also need people like that on the State Board of Education when policies are being considered. And having a couple of current teachers from the state and a parent, we already have a student member of the board, and that's for pretty much the same reason, to actually take a look at and weigh in on this. This is not a large voting block. It would add 3 people to the State Board of Education, bring it from 11 to 14. I think the people on the board, I've read their bios, and they're wise people. I think they would really appreciate having that viewpoint on the board.
Delegate Buckle, another view of this?
Yeah, well, I am all for having teachers, actual classroom teachers, be on the State Board of Education. I do think they provide a valuable perspective. What I'm not for is the way the bill is set up is it puts these teachers on there through an election process of all certified or certificated teachers throughout the state. And the reality is that's going to wind up, in our view, in my opinion, going to be an election of the teachers union, by the teachers union, for the teachers union. The teachers and the teachers union themselves, they're good people, they're there, they have a lot of particularized knowledge, but they are a particular special interest group that has a lot of political leanings and political sensibilities. I'm 100% for allowing the governor, whether it's Governor Hogan or a future governor, to find 2 teachers that he thinks best reflect that experience and put them on the State Board of Education through the normal process, but not allowing the teachers union themselves to elect their own members.
Delegates Buckle and Ebersol, gentlemen, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Thanks so much for the time. And we're back with a political roundtable right after this.
Growing up in the 80s, we used to play hide and go seek, hopscotch. All of a sudden, those streets I used to play in were flooded with violence and drugs. I looked out my window where my neighbor had been shot, and I really didn't see myself making it to 21. I retreated to my living room to find safety. PBS became a window into a broader world. If I ran home, I got to watch Bob Ross. It would just soothe me. Art is an extremely important part of my life. Today, I'm one of the founding members of Artists for Humanity. I do my best to keep kids out of gangs, to make sure that there is a clear path towards success. I found that path through PBS. Growing up, sometimes I felt despair, but when you can turn on the television and see a beautiful world, it gives you hope that you can make it to that world.
For the Political Roundtable this week, Charles Robinson joined by Steve Lash of the Daily Record. Gentlemen, the members, most of the members at least, of the Maryland congressional delegation were in Annapolis today. What was that for?
It was basically a chance for them to get together with the congressional delegation. They got one big issue that they want to talk about, and that's about 295. Steve, you want to explain what's wrong with that road?
Well, I'm not sure. Luckily, I don't have to use 295, but a lot of, I believe the issue involves widening and opposition from the local community.
The other part is that the federal government owns this road, and it is full of potholes, and many people have had various problems with that. So they have asked the congressional delegation to ask the department, I believe it's the Department of the Interior, it's called the Parkway, to basically bring it back to the state so we can kind of deal with both widening and fixing the road.
I can give you chapter and verse, history lesson, a map of the potholes on the BW Parkway, anything you need. I'm your go-to source there. But Steve, what I want to know is you were down at the Supreme Court this week covering the gerrymandering case. You didn't take the Parkway, you took 95, I guess.
No, actually, fortunately, I was able to take the Metro. And it got me there on time, which was...
Always a responsible choice. So let's talk about that, because a year ago, the Supreme Court was looking at, I think, what was the same case, which was the Maryland 6th District map. What's changed?
Yes, well, that first case involved a preliminary injunction, which was sought by the Republican voters in the 6th District, who say that the district, as drawn to favor Democrats, violated their First Amendment right to political association. The court at that time essentially, without ruling, sent it back to the district court, and the district court then ruled again, saying that, ruling this time that yes, in fact, that the 6th District does violate the constitutional rights of the Republican voters, and basically ordered the state to redraw the map. The state then appealed through Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh, and the ordered redrawing was stayed, and the court heard arguments on the constitutional issue on Tuesday.
Now, what happens next? Because the governor, responding, I guess, to the circuit court, has a commission drawing a new map. And the legislature, I don't think, is going to look at that in this session, conceivably comes back for a special session. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, it's hard to say. It depends on what the Supreme Court does, and I don't want to necessarily speculate on what the Supreme Court does. But based on the arguments this week, that if the Supreme Court finds that in fact partisan gerrymandering can be unconstitutional, that the 6th Congressional District will be Exhibit A of what an unconstitutional map looks like, based on some comments of the justices.
And one of the things that's interesting about this, it wasn't just Maryland, it was also North Carolina as a part of this court case.
Yes, North Carolina. It was a separate case that involved actually the opposite. Instead of a democratically favored district, it involved Republican gerrymandering.
Charles, people may have noticed earlier in the show we had video of a bill signing. President of the Senate was there, the governor was there, the Speaker of the House was was not. We understand he's expected back.
Yeah, this week the actual sessions were presided over by the Speaker Pro Tem, Adrian Jones. Look, we're in that last week, and this is where the rubber meets the road, Steve.
Right. If the Speaker says that he'll be back next week, and certainly this is where the Speaker will certainly want to be, is on the at the podium there, basically leading the House of Delegates in this final stretch to sine die.
And I always know when it's that time, he wears his tennis shoes the entire time.
Yes, and
that's where all the power is, that last week, that last day of the legislative session. We reported on the tie vote on the right to die or assisted suicide issue. That settles it for the year, but it certainly, I guess, doesn't settle it for the 4-year term, because only one vote has to change.
Yeah, this has been one of those weird weeks where, a lot was hanging on this. Steve, where do we go now?
Well, where we go is back, try it again next year, and it's got to hurt the main sponsor of the bill, Senator Will Smith, who we know is headed to Afghanistan. And certainly it'll be coming back next year. And this is good. This is the first time in the multiple years they've tried that this bill has made it to the Senate floor. And to fall one vote short has to hurt the sponsors, at the same time give them some hope for next session.
And remind yourself that this is the third time they've tried, and this is the first time it's actually got a vote on the Senate floor.
You can read Steve Lash's reporting at thedailyrecord.com. Gentlemen, thank you very much. That's our program for this week. Tune in every week at this time as we bring the State House to your house. For all of us at MPT, I'm Jeff Salkin. Thanks for watching, and have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.
TV Worth Watching is supported by the members of MPT and by
University of Maryland Center for Environmental Science, leading the way on Chesapeake Bay restoration, while guiding our state, nation, and world toward a more sustainable future.
Founded in the heart of Maryland, 1631 Digital works with lobbyists and advocates